Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Today I decided to do something a little different. I want to go over some setup techniques when you're sending out your mix to a different engineer. This is something that we run into a lot when we get mixes sent in, especially if they're using the same program. Like if someone's sending us a Pro Tools session, a Logic session, Studio One session. These are just kind of some tried and true things that you need to be aware of when you're sending something out to another engineer. These are the things that make our job easier or harder, and also makes it easier or harder on you as well as the person sending it out. This just kind of gets rid of a lot of headaches and stuff. So let's look at a mix real quick. We're going to start in Pro Tools. I do have Logic and Studio One open as well to go over how to do it in those DAWs as well, but we're going to start here in Pro Tools. So we have this wonderful mix that I'm looking forward to start working on, but I do have some things that I need to go through and start doing. So the first thing, let me make a quick change here. I'm going to unfreeze these. Okay. So this mix was originally sent out just pretty much as you see it. I've added a few things. I've added some reverbs and some extra stuff here just for the sake of what we're doing. But let's take a look. Okay. So this is the mix, and this is what was sent. So as you can see, the artist here went through and tracked a bunch of different parts. Looks like they did it in pieces here and there, adding little pieces back and forth, all this kind of stuff. Now in the tracking process, this is great. You know, it's really easy to just kind of lay these down, get your stuff lined up, get things set up. I mean, there's even, if we zoom in here, you know, we've got some fades. Let's kind of come back here. Let's see. So this is, yeah, this looks good for the most part. However, there's a few things we need to take a look at. So number one, if we look at the tracks here, you can see that they're all broken up. Again, now this is fine in the tracking phase when you're recording and doing what you typically do. However, working in Pro Tools and working with another engineer, this can be haphazard sometimes, because if the engineer, let's say, wants to pull the audio files, or let's say you need to send him just the audio files because he needs to put it into a different DAW, when you export files like this, they export as each little piece. So instead of like this with, let's look at this guitar part, there are these two little parts here. Here it's zoom in and look. So you can see like there's little parts here, here, and here. Now when you export these, they export as files just like that, but they're not in line. So that would mean I get 3 separate files that I don't know where they go in the timeline. So like where they fit in the song, because when I import them into a new session, they're going to snap to the beginning. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's open up and let's look at Logic, for example. So here's Logic. So as you can see here with Logic, I imported 4 different files and they immediately just jump to the beginning. Now these 4 files, let's go back into Pro Tools, are actually these here at the very, very end. So when these were exported, again, they just exported as an audio clip. But when I imported them into another DAW, they went to the beginning. So this can be an issue on the mixing side as an engineer, because I don't know that these are supposed to go to the end of the song. So how do we fix that? Well, we need to consolidate. So the easy way to do this in Pro Tools would be select the last audio file that you need to consolidate. And you can see you've got your little cursors here. and you can literally just drag this back to the beginning. So now what I'm going to go do is come up here to edit, and there's consolidate clip, which is Option Shift 3. So when we do that, boom, it's now consolidated. Now, as you can see, there's silence at the very beginning here, and then noise, you know, the playing of the guitar, and then it gets to the end. So right here, then you see silence, 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 and then back into it. So now when I export this file, it will be as one whole file, and I know where this fits. So this is consolidation. This helps immensely when we're doing stuff. Again, this helps keep everything in line. It gives us a starting point. The ending point really doesn't matter as much. It's all about how we start. So we have to start at the same point every time. Otherwise, we have no idea. Things can get off in tempo, things can be in the wrong part of the song, and that's an issue. You know, when we're looking at just this, because if I export these, they're going to export as, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different files. And I can't use that. I don't know where things are supposed to line up, and that makes it really difficult. So consolidation is key. Now you can do more than one file at once. If I just grab my cursor here, I'll just select everything like this. And again, Shift Option 3 consolidates everything. So as you can see, all the audio files are consolidated here. All of our MIDI tracks are consolidated. Everything is looking great. So if I export these now, they'll export as whole files. Now, in order to export this, like let's say you're working in, I don't know, FL Studio or Reaper or something that the engineer you're sending doesn't use. They can't open up the session that you have because they don't own the software, they don't use that software, whatever that is. There's a nifty little way to do this. So let's look. So over here in the bottom right, there is a little arrow that pops out our clip bin here. So what we're seeing, everything that I have selected right now are my consolidated clips. So if I just, let's see here. If I just grab one, you can see it's selected here. There's a little arrow up here on the right. When you click on this, you have all these extra options here. So the one that we're most concerned about is going to be here. Export clips as files. So Shift Command K right here. So this will export whatever file I have selected or files I have selected just as straight up audio files. Now if we look, so if we go to Session and we look at our session here, it's Command 2, we can see we're working at 44.1, 24-bit, so that looks great. So what I'm going to do, let's just, I'll grab both of these here. I'll grab both these files. You can see it's selected both. And we're going to go Shift Command K. So 24, 44.1. Now you can choose where you want to put this. I'm going to choose the desktop. That's where I want to go. You can see there's 4 that I already did. And we'll just say Open and Export. Boom. That's it. So those just exported out. So let's go look. So if I minimize Pro Tools here and minimize Logic. So as you can see, here they are. They're right here with the other 4 tracks that I have. So let's look at Logic real quick. All right, we need to make a new audio. Okay. And we need to import audio into here. So I'll just grab this one. We'll say Open. Ta-da! So now let's zoom all the way out. So you can see these parts, this should be like all the way down here somewhere. And say this part should be down about there. So you can see like that. When we exported just each individual file, again, they put it at the beginning, and they need to be all the way down here. And we wouldn't know that if we just got all of those files originally. So How do you consolidate files then in other DAWs? Well, if we just have this, I'll bring this back to the beginning. So all you need to do, of course, is butt them up to each other, and let's take a look here. Make sure. Cool. So those are butted up together. So let's find out. So usually somewhere in here, there's something to do. Let's see here. I don't know what it's called in here. We don't use Logic as much. So we're kind of learning this together here. There. So we've got bounce and join. So let's say join. See what that does. There. Look at that. It just created a whole new file. So it combined the two of those together like it needed to be in the beginning. Let's look at a different one. Let's look at Studio One. So again, I imported these. These are just the end files. So same idea here. What you would need to do is take these, and line them up. And let's look in here a little closer. Select there. So select both. Usually somewhere in like edit, track, events, there's something in there. In Studio One here, it's under event, merge events. So basically it's calling each of these an event. Every DAW is probably going to call it something a little bit different, but there, it's just G. Ta-da, one whole file. So in different DAWs, you can do different things, which is great. They're called different things for different reasons, but that's how you do that. So that's number one. So if you're bouncing these things out to another engineer, again, if they don't have the same DAW, if they can't open your session file, that is how you get things out. You need to use your clip bin or whatever you're using. Again, I think in Studio One, let's see, it's probably some kind of export function. Again, we don't use these enough. We need to start using these more. And I'm sure those of you that use these will probably be like, oh, it's just right there. Why aren't you doing it? But save as. Actually, I wonder if you can just. Oh yeah, there's a merge event right there too. That's recently what's been done. It's kind of cool. Store version, save as. This is the fun part. I like to go through these things together so I learn how to do things too, because we don't always do the same, use the same stuff. Split, duplicate, blah, blah, blah. So the export stems, I'm assuming is what it's gonna be. Yeah, so in Studio One, they call it export stems instead of export audio files. You can kind of see where I'm going. Every DAW might call it something a little bit different, but here you can select what you want to bounce as a stem, where you want it to go, what kind of format it's in, la, 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 la. But again, you need to make sure things are consolidated. So let's look at Logic real quick. So for Logic, if we were to grab this and we needed to export this, look, export one region as an audio file, audio files as selection as audio file. So there's different ways you can export these. So one track is audio file. So there, you can do everything and anything you need to do to export that properly. Now again, that's if you're going to a DAW or going to an engineer that doesn't have the same DAW as you. Now, let's do some undo stuff here real quick. Let's go back to where we looked at. Okay, number two, what do you do about MIDI files? So this also happens a lot. I know a lot of people like to use, of course, amp sims on guitars, maybe virtual instruments, synthesizers, piano strings, etc., etc. You need to be careful about sending out MIDI like this. Now this is just raw MIDI, as you can see here, and if we go to the other screen, in here, we have our pianos here, so that's what we were looking at here. So now, luckily, they're just using the stock plugin, the stock Mini Grand piano plugin that comes with Pro Tools, which is great. However, if you were using something different that your engineer didn't have, what are you going to try and do? Well, we need to look at this. So again, the Mini Grand being a stock plugin, not too big a deal. However, if you were using something different and your engineer doesn't have it, they aren't going to know what sound you had or what sound you're going for. So the best way to do this, if you right click, there's a commit function right here. And when we say commit, it's going to commit the selected tracks. You can consolidate them if you want. You can render, volume, and mute and pan if you have certain things going on that you need to happen. Of course, you can copy, send, group assignments. You can say what to do. So I'm just going to say do nothing with the original track, and we're going to bounce this real quick. So let's see what happens. Okay. So as you can see, we have the same thing. It has a .cm on the end, which means commit. So now let's go back in and look. So you can see on this one piano track, it's now created a track beneath, and it actually created audio files of the MIDI. So with this now, if the engineer you're sending to doesn't have the same plugins, they have an audio representation of what you were going for with whatever plugin you were using, whether that was, some virtual instrument, if you were using like a guitar amp sim kind of thing, whatever. Now they know. Now, of course, you can also do this with reverbs and delays and effects and stuff. If you're going for something very specific and you need them to replicate or make it better, you need to be able to do these things. So for something like this, of course, we need to consolidate these, but what I would do, let's just grab these and we'll take it back to the beginning and we'll consolidate. I would send both of these. That way, as an engineer on my side, I now have the audio file that I can listen to or use, and I also have the MIDI file. So if I decide, hey, I have a different plugin that might sound better or do what you're looking for easier, I have the MIDI as well to go with it. Same thing with guitar sims. Let's say you're using an amp sim. Send the DI track that you're using as well as a printed version through that plugin. That way, as an audio engineer, as a mixing engineer, I know here's the sound you were going for. This is what you were kind of searching for, and here's your direct input sound that I can play with or I can use to edit or whatever I need to do with it. It's always great to have both of those. So always try and send as much as you can. So I would need to do that for pretty much everything. So let's see. Okay. So, I would actually select all of these virtual instruments and send them. Now, if you're working with an engineer and you know they have the same plugins and you want to make it a little easier on them too, you can always freeze stuff. Now, this also helps you in general, just if you're working and your computer's having issues rendering or you're trying to track stuff and you're getting delay issues, you can freeze these. So there's a little selection here, freeze. And done. So what this has now done is, if we look at it here, it looks like, let me make one of these a little bit bigger, you can see the audio is almost laid over the MIDI. What this is doing is it's basically frozen the audio in the MIDI in the plugin itself. So everything is still there. You can unfreeze this and make changes. But this is a great way to send things out so you're not taking up as much processing power as well. But again, if you're sending this out to someone who doesn't have the same DAW, always, 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 if you can, make sure you commit and before you send everything out. So what I would do, we'll go back here. If this, if I were sending this out, let's say I needed to send this out to another engineer, I would just, I could pick a spot in the end here, grab everything. So I've got everything here. And again, you need to consolidate. So on Pro Tools, Shift Option 3. There's that. Again, I would also commit all of these. So this is going to take a minute because there's a decent amount of stuff going on here, but let's commit all these. Okay. So looking like we're committed. Everything's looking pretty good. So again, if we open this up, you can see we have all the MIDI and then the files that accompany it, the audio file version of it as well. So let's make these mini real quick so we can see. Okay, so yes, we've increased our channel count here, but that's okay. Everything is looking good. So if we select, you can see now the ending doesn't matter as much when you're consolidating. It's all about the beginning. Everything needs to start at the beginning over here. Because if it doesn't, when you pull it into a new DAW, what's going to happen is it's going to be out of time on certain parts. And that's what we don't want. We don't need that. So this is what I would send out. So again, I have all of these selected. So if we open our clip bin over here to the right, you can see everything is selected. So again, up here, we come down, export clips as files. So Shift Command K. I'm gonna bounce all that out. Actually, let's do this. So let's do a new, I'm gonna do a new folder. We're just gonna call it Audio Files, Create, Open, Export. Okay, now let's open up Finder real quick and let's look at our desktop, audio files. So now you can see we have everything in here, which is great. Now you will notice these are all WAV files with all of these. So we didn't get the MIDI. So we need to grab the MIDI here. Just grab each and every one. So you see, like, you can't export these here. MIDI is different. So we need to export MIDI. So they are in different spots. I know that's kind of confusing, but we still need to bounce these out. Okay, let's go to our desktop, as usual, audio files, save. So now, you can see there's MIDI right there. So if I grab this, actually let's do it this way. With Pro Tools, we'll go import MIDI. Grab this one, hit open. New instrument track at the session start. It's what we want. Hit OK. And as you can see, there's all of our MIDI information, just like that, ready to go. It's actually named itself as well. These are all new because here's our originals up there. Let me undo that. So that's how you do that. That's it. It works really well. So again, and this is the best way to get everything out that you need to get out, because that's all the stuff that we need to be able to work with. So yeah, there it is. Those are the quick and down dirty things you need to do for exporting. If you have any questions, you can always hit us up and let us know. But hopefully this helps you out.